Later that day after the bell rang, Q's happily gets up from his seat and asks Alia whether they can go to the council room together. She gets up without saying a word and starts walking, as if annoyed at him, but Q's knows that she is just at Sundir and nothing else. On the way to the council room, they spot the boys from both the baseball and the soccer team apologize to someone in the council room before running away scared. Q's wonders what that was all about and enters the room only to find a purple-haired tomboy with a bamboo stick in her hand, making her look even more threatening. Q's immediately tries to shut the door again, but the girl blocks it with her hand and opens it up back again before apologizing to them and introducing herself as Sarah, the secretary of this council and the president's girlfriend. They both enter the council and take their seat, while Q's asks what were the athletes doing in this room. Sarah tells him that they were having an argument again, so this time she went to sort it out with her bamboo sword and her fists, and it was just a matter of threatening violence, after which both the teams automatically decided to find a middle ground. The president laughs at this situation, claiming that Sarah is not as scary as she looks, and they start doing their lovey-dovey stuff, while Q's and Alia make jokes about them. Soon Masha enters as well, and the Q's first council meeting begins as he steps up and introduces himself as the head of general affairs and states the fact that he will be partnered up with Alia for the next election to help her become the president. Alia looks at him dreamily while the president smiles and wishes him best of luck. He tells Q's that since he was the vice president in junior school, he should quickly get the hang of it, but for today he is going to pair up with Masha as they are very short-staffed right now and need all the help they can get. Q's agrees immediately, while Yuki smiles and tells the president that she needs to have a conversation with the art club regarding the festival coming up and tells the president that she would need the help of Alia as well because she is the treasurer and they need to discuss finances. This is a bit strange because none of this had been discussed before, but Alia agrees to go immediately. Both the girls leave the room while Q's wonders what kind of plan is Yuki hatching as he knows that something is definitely up. His suspicions turn out to be true when Yuki takes Alia to a separate room with no one in Sigjit, where Alia decides to diffuse the tension and apologizes to her for stealing Q's as her own partner for the next elections. Yuki looks down and tells Alia not to worry as this is not her fault and Q's made his own choices which she doesn't really mind. But she would have been much happier if he chose her. Alia looks at her and builds up her courage before asking Yuki what does she feel about Q's. To her absolute surprise, Yuki straight up tells Alia that she loves Q's more than anything else in this world, including her own mom and dad. Alia is still shocked when Yuki springs up the same question to her and asks whether she likes Q's as well. Alia immediately starts blushing and looks down before replying that Q's is just a friend for her. Yuki decides to press her even more and asks whether she is in love with her or not. Alia finds herself at a loss of words once again, while Yuki pushes her against the wall, claiming that she has already told her that she loves Q's, and now it's Alia's turn to make things clear. Alia struggles for a bit, before replying that even though she doesn't know whether she loves him, she will never have Yuki have him. Yuki smiles cheekily and tells her that this is enough conversation for today as they need to work as well, and leaves the room, while Alia wonders what the hell just happened. Meanwhile, back in the council room, Masha and Q's where they spend their time cross-checking documents and making corrections wherever needed. Q's realizes that Masha is really good at her job when his eyes wander off towards Chisa, who doesn't have enough brain cells to even take out a book properly, as she falls to the ground with all the books. Soon Masha is also done with her work and tells Q's that they should take a small tea break before working again. She immediately gets up and heads over to get some black tea, while Q's asks her whether Russians drink black tea in the summers. She tells her that usually they drink it only during the winters, but since her mother is Japanese and loves black tea, they drink it very often in the summers too. This makes Q's think about how the girl he liked when he was young also had a mother that loved black tea. When Masha breaks his thoughts and asks whether he knows a lot about Russians, he lies and claims that he has only watched a couple of movies and that's it, while in fact he studied really hard to learn as much as possible about the Russian culture. Masha soon sits down beside him and starts eating spoonfuls of jam before every sip of tea, which is also a Russian thing. Q's also tries to do the same, but it is too sweet for his taste. Soon after that, Yuki and Alia also return from their errand, and Masha immediately sets out to make tea for them as well. Alia looks a little grumpy, but puts her chair really close to Q's and sits down, asking if he has any problem. Q's immediately looks over to Yuki and realizes that she has pulled some new trick this time and wonders what's going to happen. Masha cheerfully asks Alia whether she found any guys she likes and would love to marry. But Alia shakes her head before softly whispering in Russian that it's too early for marriage. Q's looks at her when Masha puts down a huge plate of jam in front of her, which she starts gulping down angrily. Soon the president dismisses all of them, and Q's starts the walk back home with Alia while the sun starts setting. He wonders what Yuki told her as she looks very stressed and decides to do something about it. He invites her to a small cafe, claiming that they should discuss a little about their presidential election because they don't get much time during the school. Alia whispers in Russian asking whether this is a date, which makes Q's blush, but he pretends not to understand it and enters the cafe with her. They sit down and she gets 2 big boy smoothies so she can post them on Insta when Q's decides to address the Russian in the room and asks whether something happened with Yuki. She gave him an annoyed look and told him that nothing happened, which just made him absolutely sure that Yuki pulled some trick on her. Suddenly Alia asks Q's whether he is dating Yuki, but Q's outright denies it, claiming that he would date his own mom before dating Yuki. Alia looks at him suspiciously, so Q's decides to clear some air and tells her that Yuki is not as ladylike and innocent as she looks, and promises that she is simply messing around and teasing her. This makes Alia relax a little while Q's tells her that they need to do something about Yuki, because as it is, they will definitely lose the elections. Alia looks at him a little frustrated, but he claims that this is a truth. He explains that usually there are much more candidates that try to fight for an election, and after a general meeting where the candidates are supposed to have a brainless debate like Biden and Trump, half of the candidates drop out because they realize they don't have any support. Then finally, the top 3 candidates are chosen to run the election, and amongst them, one is chosen. Unfortunately, this time everyone thinks that Yuki will win by default, and because of that no one is even interested in standing against her. While Q's is giving his monologue, Alia is completely distracted by the fact that even though they are alone in a cafe, he is not even acting a little shy, as if he comes here with different girls every single day. She ends up biting her entire straw before she decides to stress eat right in front of him. Q's is a little surprised by this, and this breaks his thought train, while Alia decides that this is a time to pull the classic move of sharing the same spoon. She asks whether Q's would like to have a bite, but when he denies, she still tells him to have 1 bite. She extends the spoon while he asks for a different once, but Alia tells him to shut up and open his mouth, as these things are very normal in Russia. Q's looks at her face and realizes that she is clearly lying, but opens his mouth regardless and rejoices at the first deep-throated indirect kiss that he has ever had. Soon they return back to their shy self when Alia asks what should they do if they want to beat Yuki. Q's tells her that last year their president wasn't even in the student council, and yet ended up winning the elections, but that was because he had a plan. Q's explains that at the start of the year, Ken was a fat fatty who had average grades at best. But soon as the year went on, he ended up losing all the weight and started doing better in academics, which drew all the fatphobic people to his side as they realized that Ken can achieve things that he doesn't have through hard work. This way Ken created a compelling story which is needed for every election. He orders some food for himself and tells her that she should give a speech in front of the entire student body and try to win them that way, and Alia agrees. Soon his food arrives and they start eating when he offers Alia a bite. She eagerly agrees, but this loser gives her a different spoon and a bowl to eat, and because it was super spicy, she ends up tearing up once again. While walking back at night, Alia asks Q's whether he has any idea who Yuki will be partnering up with, and Q's replies that she shouldn't have much trouble finding a partner as she is pretty popular, but claims that if she picks Tan as her partner, it would be very difficult for them to win. Alia asks who Tan is, and he explains that she is the opponent of Yuki from junior school who fought till the very end for the position but lost by a small margin. After that they decide to head back to their homes for the night, and the next day they meet again in the council room where surprisingly enough Yuki has already found a new partner. She comes in with a glowing face, smiling at Q's before revealing that her partner is going to be Ayano from her class, who looks at Q's directly, while he wonders why is his sister tormenting him so much. The next morning when he goes back to school, he is approached by Ayano, who asks him whether he is seriously planning to fight the elections against Yuki. Q's wonders what is this girl planning to do and replies that he is indeed going to fight elections with Alia as he has promised to do everything in his power to make her the president. Ayano looks at him blankly and asks whether he forgot how strict his grandfather is about the matters of family. This brings a distaste in Q's mouth as he remembers his grandfather constantly barking about how family is the most important. He tells Ayano that Yuki is still the most important person to him in this world, and he would always be by her side. But at the same time, he is going to help Alia win these elections, and that's his final decision. Ayano bows her head and asks whether he has any message for his grandfather, and Q's heatedly claims that if the old man has anything to say, he should say it to his face and leave Yuki alone. After that, he walks over to his classroom where his two incel friends grabs a magazine filled with pictures of idols and asks which one Q's prefers. Q's is a true Sigma, claiming he isn't interested in two-dimensional paper cuttings, but when forced to pick one, he picks the girl with brown hair. The bald incel immediately comments about how this woman looks like Masha and asks whether Q's is making moves on her, but Q's replies that she already has a boyfriend and is way above his league anyways. Suddenly, Alia ends up entering the classroom and spots Q's holding the magazine in his hands. This pisses her off as she calls him an animal in Russian before asking why the hell would a member of the student council bring a book like this. But Q's promises that Takeshi, the single-brain-celled incel, brought this stupid magazine and not him. Alia doesn't seem to care and sits down annoyed, while Takeshi, who is dumber than Biden himself, asks whether Q's would like to date Yuki. Q's replies that they are not in Alabama, so no, and moreover he wants a girl who can also be his best friend. Alia smiles and claims in Russian that she can be his best friend as well. This makes Q's blush, while the others ask what's up with him. He tries to change the subject, but Takeshi's brain is smoother than a bowling ball as he can't get a hint and continues saying that a girl should have a cute smile and should be very friendly with everyone. Q's realizes that Alia is feeling sad about this, so he asks her to be a bit more considerate. So this pea-brained incel jumps up and claims that personality doesn't matter as long as the girl is as pretty as Alia. This was the worst thing he could have said to a modern, strong, independent woman, as Alia gets into his face and tells him that incels like him will never find a woman who is three-dimensional, and grabs the magazine before taking it away. Later that day, all of the council members arrive at the council. While the girls decide to gamble Kit Kats, as it is already sanctioned in Russia, Yuki decides to take everything away from Alia, so she is forced to survive on knockoff products from Russia and seems to be doing pretty well, as she is good at bluffing and Alia can't read her well. Sarah, Ken and Q's are sitting on the opposite table, keeping scores when Ken comments that he always thought Alia would be more composed, but she seems to be super easy to read, which Yuki is taking full advantage of. Q's laughs, claiming that a battle of wits is where Yuki is at her strongest, when Sarah claims that she can't ever figure out what's going on with Masha though. She always looks with such a pretty angelic smile that it would seem like she is a Russian goddess herself with no flaws in her. Ken laughs, but then asks about Ayano's relations with Yuki, and Q's replies that she serves Yuki and her family, as her grandparents did before her. Sarah is surprised by this, and asks whether her parents also serve the Yuki family, but Sarah shakes her head, claiming that they are office workers, and she just chose this path because she admired the commitment of her grandparents. She almost lets it slip that Q's and Yuki are siblings, but Q's manages to cover it up and tells her to be more careful as no one in their school knows about their relationship. Ken seems very interested and asks whether she received any kind of special training, and Ayano nods, claiming that her grandparents have drilled it in her that she needs to be like a shadow, always away from limelight and working behind the scenes to make sure the person who she is serving never has to face any issues. Soon enough, Masha also walks up to their table and sits down beside Q's, asking Ayano if she can refill her cup. She tells everyone that Alia ended up sending her away as she wanted to play on her own. They all look at both Yuki and Alia completely engrossed in her game, when Q's claims that Alia seems to be enjoying herself. The others can't really see this, as she seems super stressed about the game. Soon the bottle of juice that they were sharing runs out, so Q's and Masha decide to head out for a drink run and ask everyone for their preferred drink. Literally every single person in the room mentioned a different drink, but Q's ends up remembering all of them exactly after one listen, which surprises everyone as he simply walks outside. While walking with Masha as the sun was setting, she thanks him for standing in the elections with Alia, as it means a lot to her. Q's replies that she doesn't have to thank him for something like that, but Masha claims that this is very special, as Alia never lets anyone help her as she hates depending on others, but surprisingly she is willing to get help this time. Q's straight up asks whether she intentionally acts like a stupid thought around Alia. This takes Masha by surprise, but she smiles, claiming that she doesn't want to compete against her own sister, as she knows Alia is a super hard worker. This makes Q's think about his own overachieving sister, who looks so elegant at school, and wonders whether she pretends to be a total nerd at home, but comes to the decision that the person at home is the actual Yuki and not what she becomes in the school. Masha asks Q's why does he pretend to be a lazy person when he himself is super responsible. This catches him off guard, but he smiles and claims that he wants to live his life without disappointing anyone. So he tries to act lazy so no one depends on him ever. Masha smiles warmly and pats him on the head, telling him that he is doing a great job, while Q's feels like her dog, but kind of likes it as well. The next morning, Alia gets stream sniped by Tan, the old rival of Yuki, who stops her in the middle of the school and asks why the hell did she stoop so low that she pulled Yuki's partner to join her team instead. Alia was shocked at this and didn't know what to say, while Tan asked her whether she was scared that she would have no chances of winning if Yuki was partnered up with Q's. Everyone in the school hears this fight and start watching, embarrassing Alia even more, who tells her that Q's himself wanted to be in her team, but Tan refuses to believe it. Thankfully, Q's arrives at the right moment, and tells Tan to back off as he indeed chose to run with Alia, and Yuki knows of this and doesn't mind it either. He tells Tan to apologize to Alia, but she walks to him straight up and challenges Q's into a presidential debate. She claims that people like Q's shouldn't have a place in the student council, let alone the elections, but Alia intervenes, telling her to back off, as if she wants to debate him, she will have to go through her. Tan turns out to be a total savage, and tells Alia that she is simply a puppet who gets good grades, but has no social or life skills, so she will just get herself embarrassed, but claims that it might be better for the entire school to get rid of the eye candy from the presidential election, so she challenges both of them to a presidential debate at once. The next morning, both Q's and Alia head over to the council president, revealing their encounter with Tan, which confuses the president. He claims that Tan is a respected student and very smart as well, which means that it wouldn't be very easy to win against her in these debates. Alia doesn't seem to be bothered by it, but Q's mentions that they don't really have anything to gain from it, since Tan is not even in the presidential race, but Alia claims that it would still give her an opportunity to show her skills and ideology against Tan in front of the student body, which might win her some more support. Later that day, both Q's and Alia go over their game plan, while Q's tests her by listening to her answers against Tan's accusations till he is satisfied with her preparation. Before they were about to leave, Alia asks whether Tan doesn't like Q's, but he looks off into distance, replying that he thinks that both of them respect each other equally, and they don't have any bad blood. In fact, she was a very good friend of Q's during middle school. This surprises Alia a little, who asks why would Tan turn against Q's this way, and he replies that Tan probably thinks that he is simply trying to bring chaos in the elections. In Tan's eyes, Q's is leaving Yuki when she is at her strongest to support a different candidate for absolutely no reason than to spark some hurdles in her way and make things more interesting, which Tan doesn't like. The next morning, they both walk down to the auditorium, when they are approached by a Gen Z girl named Mia, who is basically Tan's friends. She seems to know Q's already and tells them to relax a bit before walking ahead. Alia doesn't really like the way she carries herself, but Q's claims that she is very popular among the students, so her words carry a lot of weight. Alia realizes that a person with connections can definitely be a threat, but Q's tells her not to worry about that and focus on the debate first. The auditorium soon starts getting filled up by students from every class gossiping about the elections. Alia slowly starts getting nervous at the sight of so many students who are probably talking about how she is not worthy of this position. She starts spiraling very quickly, thinking about how she has never made a meaningful connection with anyone before, but Q's snaps her out of it, and tells her to calm down, as her enemy today is not Tan, but the perfect vision of herself that she wants to become. He tells her to Netflix and chill for a while, as if anything goes wrong, he will handle it. This calms her down a bit, and soon they all take their positions as the debate starts. Ken introduces both sides and asks the opposition about their view, and Tan quickly moves up to the podium, and instead of aiming for Alia, she decides to aim for Q's. She explains that the current members of the student council are solely picked out by the president and the vice president, which means that there is a lot of place for corruption, nepotism, and favoritism. She claims that students who have never achieved anything in their life, who get average grades in academics and are no good in sports, suddenly become the member of the student council, which makes them higher status than every other student who has been working his ass off to achieve something. She continues that the members of the student council should be solely picked out on the basis of their grades and performance in extracurricular activities by the teachers themselves so that they can get rid of lazy slackers who do nothing but create chaos for everyone. This really impresses everyone as the entire student body claps, while Ken calls up Alia to defend against these views. Alia confidently moves up to the podium and starts presenting her point of view. She explains that the school prides itself over the self-governance of students, as it shows that the students studying in this school are old enough to know how to carry themselves. Moreover, if Tan believes that the student council needs the help of teachers to decide something as small as choosing the members of the council, then it simply means that she is weak-minded and doesn't think she can do that on her own. Moreover, academic grades are not everything, as people have their own strengths and weaknesses. A slacker who is average in studies can have incredibly amazing social and problem-solving skills, which are very important to the student council. Hughes realizes that she has saved her position now, but Tan decides to interrupt and starts questioning, but all her questions turn out to be trash as Alia calmly manages to answer everything. While Hughes smiles as Tan was thinking that he is her rival in this debate, when in reality it was always Alia. Tan struggles to maintain her position and asks what would happen if the president or vice president go berserk. But before Alia could answer, some of the students start creating a ruckus, calling Alia an outsider and claiming that Tan's is much better suited in the council than her. This totally shakes her concentration, and she forgets what she was going to answer. Hughes realizes that this is the work of Mia, who planted these students. But the trick has worked, as the disturbance completely rattled Alia's confidence while Tan pushes her to answer the question. Alia was just about to break down completely when she feels the hands of Hughes on her back, who takes over the mic and claims that Alia seems to have lost her voice because she was deep-throating some hot dogs last night. He claims that he will continue the debate from here on, but instead of talking about points, he straight up starts a stand-up comedy routine and completely roasts the poor president for no reason. He claims that if the decision of who enters the student council was given over to the teachers who would select the top scorers of the school, Ken would have never become a president, as he had very trash scores and was a total fat loser during his first year. But because student council awards passion and talent, Ken was able to outgrow his fat self and became the president that they all love today. With that, he drops the mic and everyone looks at Tan for her answers. But she doesn't want to get roasted, so she runs away, followed by Alia. Alia catches her after a while, only to find her crying, as it turns out that she was shipping Hughes with Yuki all this while, but suddenly Alia came in the picture and Hughes left Yuki as if it was nothing. This made her very mad, as she always thought Yuki was the best since she defeated her during the middle school presidential elections, so Hughes choosing Alia meant that even Alia is better than her. Alia understands her mindset but tells her to get help from a psychologist and returns back to the auditorium, where she finds out that the debate was concluded and she was awarded the victory in the debate. She tells Hughes about what Tan said, and Hughes replies that she was one of the fiercest competitors they had during the middle school, but she ended up accepting her defeat against Yuki and Hughes as she thought she could never defeat them. Alia looks at him and claims that she will work as hard as possible to become a person that Tan respects just as much as she respects Yuki, so that she can approve of her partnership with Hughes as well. Hughes smiles at this, but Alia asks him why did he ever pick her over Yuki when they had such a strong partnership. Hughes looks down sad as he remembers how he was forced to be away from his sister and wanted to make it up to her by supporting her throughout life, but decides to keep this information hidden and tells Alia that he never truly wanted to be a vice president and hated the spotlight. But he owed Yuki a favor, so he was forced to do it. But this time things are different, as he himself wants to support and work with Alia, who he believes would definitely make an excellent president. Alia seems to be very happy with this conversation when Hughes asks why did she decide to run the presidential elections with him, since it is such an important thing, and she could have found someone much better. But Alia replies in Russian, and for once even Hughes doesn't understand what she said. She immediately gets up and starts walking while he follows her, asking what did she just say to him, but Alia smiles playfully and tells him to learn Russian if he wants to know what she said.